And joining us now for more is Eli Rubenstein, the Director of Education for the International March of the Living. He speaks to us from Toronto, Canada. And Eva Kuper, a Holocaust survivor and a hidden child during that period, also from Canada, though Montreal. And Eli, I'll start with you. Tell us about the genesis of this film, focusing on the decision to focus on righteous Gentiles.
Good afternoon, Calev. Thanks for having us. The genesis of the film is that we believe that it is so important to share the stories of the righteous among nations with the students on the March of the Living for three distinct reasons. First of all, it's part of the actual history. This is part of the historical record. Secondly, we don't want to create a generation of misanthropes. We don't want our students to give up hope on humanity if all they see is the ashes and the shoes and the terrible destruction wreaked by Nazi Germany on the Jews. And thirdly, we want the righteous among the nations to serve as role models, both Jews and non-Jews, to show these students that in every dark period in history, there are people who stood up against evil and they can do the same. So that's why we felt it was very important to make sure that not only students on the March of the Living hear the stories of the righteous among the nations, but through I24 to spread it to as many people in the world as possible.
Right, and Eva, of course, you're in the film. You were saved in Poland, wartime Poland. I know we can go an hour on it, and people who want more can see the film. But as briefly, tell us about the person, how you were saved, the person, the righteous Gentile who saved you.
Her name is Sister Clara Yarushinska. She is a nun. She was a nun. Her order was the Franciscan Sisters in the Service of the Cross, and their life work was to educate and care for the blind, children particularly. And before the war and after the war, they operate an Institute for the Blind just south of Warsaw in a place called Laski, where they educate and prepare for independent life more than 300 children, age 3 to 19. During the war, I had been placed temporarily with another person, another righteous Gentile. Her name is Hanka Rembowska. And when Hanka got terribly sick with tuberculosis and could no longer look after me, she fortunately found, by accident, this nun, Clara Yarushinska, whose name I did not know. She ran into her on the street, waiting for a train, actually, with a number of other nuns. And she begged Clara to take her little girl because she was no longer able to look after me. And she had done that selflessly, as all righteous had, in terms of the risk that they were taking, which was their own lives. For Sister Clara, it was even more so because she agreed to take me, not so willingly initially, but I found out later in 2005 when I miraculously reconnected with her that I had run to her when Hanka met her and put my arms around her knees and looked up at her and asked her, please pick me up, which she did. And she said she fell in love with me, a tiny little child with black eyes and a winning personality. And I somehow had the instinct that this is the nun of the 6 or 7 that were there that I should run to. And she picked me up, and she said once she had done that and she held me and I cuddled with her, she fell in love with me. And she said that God had brought me to her and that she had to do what was right, what she had been taught.
Right. And it's interesting, a lot of debate over the role of the Catholic Church during the war, but as the documentary shows, the people who became righteous Gentiles came from very different backgrounds, all kinds of different people. It's almost like you can't generalize other than they had something special in their heart.
I do agree. And you have to tell you, on the March of the Living, after the students have been to the death camps at places like Auschwitz and Majdanek and Treblinka, and then they come to Warsaw on Saturday night where Eva shares her story with the students in Montreal, but in fact, all of Canada, you can see this wave of relief awash across the students when they realize so viscerally, yes, there was another side to humanity. There was a side of goodness and kindness that gives them hope in humanity. I always think of the quote that says, the righteous among the nations didn't just save Jews during the Holocaust, they actually saved their very reputation of humanity. And it's so important for the students when they go on the March, they hear stories like Eva, so they don't give up hope in humanity.
Right. And even I have to say, there's a beautiful memorial in Yad Vashem to the righteous Gentiles, their efforts, like the March of the Living organization that draws attention to them. But I think until the Schindler's List and Oskar Schindler, most people in the world wouldn't have been able to name even one of these righteous Gentiles. So do you think these people, like Sister Clara, get the credit, the honor that they deserve, risking their own lives and going against their own societies to save Jewish individuals and children like yourself?
Well, we can never repay them enough. We can never credit them enough. We can never honor them enough, or honor their memories in most cases now. But we are all capable of both. We are both capable. We are capable both of evil and of great good. But not all of us have that level of moral development that allows us to act on these values at the risk of our own lives or the lives of our families, for instance. Sister Clara had other children in her care. She had other nuns in her care. There was a priest that was with us. And she risked all that when she took me. Right. And she told me when I met her in 2005 that she was constantly frightened. And somehow, with her being so frightened, I had still felt safe with her. It's incredible.
Right. And Eli, of course, in the March of the Living, of course, famous for taking people, for example, to the death camps and seeing the horrors of the Holocaust that, of course, we have to remember. But yes, another part of that, the other side of that is individuals. We're not talking about one or two or tens or 20s, hundreds, even thousands that in Europe at that time were willing to put themselves up to save the life of Jews. And that also has to be contrasted against these horrors.
Absolutely. I remember a story I heard from a Holocaust survivor who talked about, in the story, a Polish farmer answers the door in the middle of the night, and there's a Jewish family wanting to stay, and the Polish farmer and his wife say, "You can stay for the night, but no longer. But you must leave the next morning." The next morning, they decide they're going to save this Jewish family, and the Jewish family stays with them for a number of weeks until one day, and they actually become friends, the Polish farmer and the Jewish family. The Polish farmer discovers that the Jewish man is about to leave. They're packing their bags. The Polish man says, "What's going on here? Well, I thought we were friends." And the Jewish man says, "We are friends, but we found out what happened in the neighboring Polish village. They took an entire Polish family and murdered them and killed them and the Jews they were saving because they helped them. We don't want to take the same chance with you. You've been so good to us. We cannot repay good with evil. We are leaving." And for the first moment, he saw the anger in the Polish farmer's eyes, who said to him, "Listen to me carefully. Put down your bags, because what happens to you happens to us." And that kind of story of Polish people and Jewish people risking their lives to save each other's are the kinds of stories we'd like to tell in the March as role models to all people, all members of the human family.
And Eva, besides your life that you owe to Sister Clara, what do you take away from her, what you've learned about life and the human spirit just from her actions toward you?
I think that she gave me two gifts. I was born more than once, and if you knew my whole story, there were several miracles that contributed to my survival. Not all of them were due to the righteous, but there were miracles nevertheless. And what Sister Clara gave me was two gifts. Not only did she save my life, as if that wasn't enough, she also gave me the gift of love. And you have to remember that I was 3 years old at the time. So I was a young child, and a young child of 3 who was deprived of love for the next 3 years of her life grows up with a deficit, which is very difficult, if not impossible, to make up. And I had that. I had my mother for the first 2 years of my life, and my father. And after that, I had Sister Clara till I regained my father again. So, and I'm fortunate in that I was very young, so I don't really have terrible memories of horror of my own. It's only what I've been told, which is bad enough, but it's not the same as it is for people who are even a few years older than I, who do harbor the memories and nightmares of what happened during the war.
I just want to say again, Eli, the film will be shown multiple times starting tomorrow over the next 3 days on i24 News. That is its premiere. But yes, correct, it will also be on the website of the March of the Living organization, correct?
That's correct. And thank you for bringing these beautiful, incredibly courageous stories to the world. We appreciate it very much.
All right, Eli Rubenstein from March of the Living. Eva Kuper, thank you so much for joining us with that very special story. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.